What's going on, everyone, and welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review of the new Netflix original series, Sweet Tooth. This series is based off the comic books from Lemire and is created by Mickle and Beth Schwartz. Now, before we begin, if you like this channel, awesome, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium, hit that notification bell top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome, hit that like button, as well as commenting below any video to watch, including this one. So imagine, if you will, you live in a pandemic. It's not really imaginary because we still do live in a pandemic, but imagine, if you will, that 10 times more people died and the world is in chaos. Now, also imagine, if you will, there are creatures that have basically come about because of this pandemic called hybrids. Now, hybrids, of course, are half animal, half human characters, like Gus, who's the main character of the series, and they're being targeted by these characters called the Last Man, which is by basically being controlled by this general named General Abbott, who literally controls the United States at this point. And that's basically what Sweet Tooth is. It's about a young boy named Gus, who of course is this young hybrid kid who has deer antler, deer ears, has the ability to smell and hear like a deer. He's basically raised by his father Pubba, who of course is played by Will Forte, in the woods of Yellowstone National Park to secure him from being tracked down by the Last Man. And through certain circumstances and reasons, he ends up with a character named Big Guy, or Jepper, or whatever, however you say his name, who of course is played by Nonso, who is a drifter, a nomad. He's been traveling the land by himself. He's very pushed back by Gus and stuff like that for reasons that are later on explained in the series. And they basically go on an adventure to find Gus's mom, who lives in Colorado. Now, along the way, we see a character named Bear, who's this young woman, like 20-somethings woman, who ends up basically traveling with them. She was part of a Lost Boys tribe to help hybrids and stuff like that. I won't spoil it for you, but she ends up joining the tribe. They end up going on this quest. And as we see in a first season or an 8-episode series, it's not that easy getting to California. There's obstacles and problems along the way that as each episode plays on, we see more and more play out. So it's basically a series about trying to get to a location and the difficulties of that location. But with this series, there's also some other main characters. We have, of course, like I said, General Abbott, who is the leader of the Last Man, a very bad guy, antagonist and stuff like that. We have a doctor who is married to has a wife who has the sick, which is the disease that goes around, was what they call it. And he's trying to find a cure. He works for the lab where the cure is trying to be presented and stuff like that. And we also have this young woman named Amy who finds herself at a zoo, and she's creating a preserve and a sanctuary and so on and so forth. So she's that linchpin for hybrid characters to survive and keep in secret and whatnot. And in essence, that's what this world is. It's about a bunch of moving parts that are eventually leading to a significant point as the series concludes in the first season. So this series is interesting to me. It's fascinating, as I usually say, because I didn't know anything about it at all. This is one of the first times I've ever gone in blind. Not really ever. I didn't watch the trailer. I actually didn't know this was a comic series till just, a few days ago. It makes a lot more sense now why the series does what it does. But I had seen the poster and some production stills, and the first thing I thought about was, this is a young kids show. This is a young adult show for like young teens. So I was expecting this to be goofy and weird, and the CG to be really crappy, and just to be really fun and fancy free with some hybrid characters and stuff like that. And the pandemics and stuff like that, the virus, it can be fit into a young kid's story if done right, to protect the kids' innocence, trying to deal with the really hardcore scenarios and stuff like that. But I thought this was going to be like a young kid series and so on and so forth. And boy, let me tell you something. After watching this season, after taking it all in, after knowing what the comic presents, this series was not at all what I was expecting at all. And before you go, oh, he hated it. No, absolutely not. Did I not only not hate the show, but I respect it and love it for the audacity to be not only extremely dark and extremely willing to broach on very hard subjects, but it might be one of the most refreshing conceptual shows that I've seen probably since Lost. It doesn't mean it's perfect. There's a lot of stuff that drags, but Lost did the same thing. But this series takes on some really difficult subject matter that not only doesn't make it for acceptable for kids, like young kids, but it borderlines almost hitting a mature TV MA rating just on some of the episodes that are presented in the series. You have these individuals who very much mirror some of the things going on in our society, with people that are scared, with people that are not willing to look at true realistic things, that basically jump at conclusions and will harm people for no reason. And instead of, the last men kind of studying the hybrid characters, they're constantly tracking them down and attacking them because they think they're responsible for, this virus or whatever, and that's not exactly what's going on in the series. It's a series that, like I said, not only does it broach hard subject matters, but it does it with such panache and such thought-provoking nature and such kind of cool and interesting, and just it's just really kind of an interesting series that I was not expecting to even remotely enjoy. I mean, we look at a character like Gus, and should be a very not interesting character. He should be like a one note kid who, is in the story as a MacGuffin or whatever. And instead, he's a character with very complex issues, very complex ideologies, his motivations and how he was raised and how he's important to the story, and how his character evolves throughout the story, and how he becomes friends with the Nonso Alonzi, big guy character who has his own interesting kind of conceptual arc that I was very enamored by. It really is an emotionally impactful season that really does some interesting ideas. And I'm not trying to spoil anything, but when you start watching the series, and if you especially didn't know about the comic like I did, you're going to be, unless you really just don't like gel with the series, which is perfectly all right, you're going to be completely floored by what exactly is happening with Gus and Big Guy. And then, like I said, when Bear comes along, which is the young woman, she brings even much more complexity to the concepts and her views of the world. She's very much in one corner, and then General Abbott's in another corner, and it makes for just some very interesting storytelling. I give Jeff Mickle and Beth Schwartz a lot of credit for just crafting a world that I just was completely thrown aside by. I mean, it's just really interesting. When this series continues, it's going to be really fascinating to see where these characters kind of align themselves as the season moves on. Like I said, hopefully there is a second season, but Netflix has been weird and they keep canceling shows. I mean, Jupiter's Legacy and the Irregulars got canceled, sorry. But the other thing that is really magical about the show is it's just very beautiful. Even though it's bleak and weird and disturbing a lot of times, it has some very beautiful imagery, and the character of Gus himself and the way, his CG on his ears and stuff like that, and his horns and whatnot are very interesting to look at, and to watch him kind of act like a deer but also act like a human. It makes for a very conflicting character, and to watch him kind of experience things for the first time, because like I said, he grew up in isolation, is a lot of fun, and what we take for granted is what something he might experience like the first time in his life, and to watch him kind of react to that and whatnot. And yeah, that's the kind of concepts and ideas in this series. Like I said, it's, when you go to those places that are extremely dark and disturbing, it really impacts you. It really kind of hits you in a lot of interesting feels, because you're not expecting to have those kind of emotions when you're watching a series like this. And like I said, it makes me want to go back and read the comic just to see if it's as impactful as like Robert Kirkman's Walking Dead was, or something like that, or any of these series that gets a greenlit that ends up being a comic at one point. And yeah, it's totally a recommend. It's a series that is very difficult to watch at some points, but I think it's truly kind of a remarkable experience, and is one of my favorite TV shows I've seen in quite a while. I don't know. Like I said, it's really interesting. Now, with that said, there are some problems with the show. There's a lot of moving pieces and moving parts. There's a lot of whiplash moments. So you're like with one character, then you go back with another character, you go back with another character, you go back with another character. So the play with time and how they use it can be a little confusing, and you're like a little wondering like, where point am I supposed to be in the story? How is it supposed to be playing out? What point of the pandemic am I in? They're trying to bring in a lot of stuff at once and a lot of moving pieces at once, that it can be a little overwhelming in a lot of places. And I think General Abbott, for the most part, is a fun character. I like his twirling mustache type anti-hero, but he has a little bit of that one-note villainous type of character that is fun and menacing, but he doesn't really have a lot of well-written dialogue, a lot of well-written character development. So as far as a villain, he's not that great, but I think the actor who plays him does a pretty nice job of what he's doing. And a lot of times the series does meander with like pacing and stuff like that, but I think with a series like this, I always complain about series that are either too long or too short, but at 8 episodes, I think this series is actually quite perfect for what it does, because the one thing that really bums me out sometimes in a lot of these series is you don't get a lot of resolution. You get a lot of open box mystery stuff and a lot of what's going to happen next. And that does happen in this series, but this series, if it ends here, we have enough to go off of, enough resolution, enough, twists and turns and, revelations and stuff like that, that it really feels like a whole series in one season and does a really nice job with it. So at the end of the season, you have enough information that you know exactly what's going on and you're excited for the next season, but and you could be satisfied with the season ending the way it does. And like I said, I hope it has a second season. I really do. I hope people watch this and it becomes like the next Queen's Gambit or something like that, where it just becomes huge, or it becomes, a show that really becomes popular with the masses. But overall, I just really love the series. I really love what the first season does. I really feel that it really tries and really is methodical in its approach and gives us some really well-developed characters. And like I said, I can't wait to see and hopefully see a second season to this series, because I want to know where it goes next. And everybody in the show is awesome. So, but overall, I'm giving this season a 9.5 out of 10. I think it's definitely worth a watch. I think you'll get a lot out of it, and I think you'll enjoy it for what it's worth. So, but with that said, that'll do it. That'll be my take on this first season of Sweet Tooth. Thank you so much for watching. In the comments below, let me know if you're interested in seeing this series. Is it something that looks, fascinating to you now that you know my, take on it? Are you much more excited to see it? Do you know about the comic? Which I, of course, didn't. So anyways, let me know in the comments below. But if you like what you see, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, as always, hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.